Welcome back. We are talking today with Rob Burton about exercising for corporations. Rob, great first segment there. Lots of good information with step one and step two. Now, let's start with step three.
Yeah, so when we put these five steps together, I was, coming from that disciplined military environment, and this was, came from experience as well. It's really about final logistics. So are we ready to run the exercise, right? So we've got everything ready, the scenario is ready, we got the team, we got the location, we got the dates, everything's good to go. But have we tested the equipment? Do we know if that building is available, or if there's something else going on in it today? If it's a virtual exercise, are we comfortable with breakout groups? Do we know how to put teams into breakout rooms before we even get to using that piece of technology? So there's lots of questions, and I'll say this came up early on when we started to focus fully on exercises here at PreparedX as our core business. And it came up, without not naming any, of the brands involved, we would walk into, again, some of the biggest banks, some of the biggest insurance companies, you name it. And we would say, can we get in the evening before? And they would say, well, that's crazy. You don't need to get in the evening before. You'll come in 10 minutes before. We'll plug your laptop in and you'll be good to go. And I'm like,
I already know where that's going.
Yeah, exactly. So you talk about lessons to be learned. We learned that very quickly, and so when they said, look, not the night before, but we'll give you an hour, and that's what we had to settle on. If it was a big, fancy exercise, 60 people, 70 people, multiple rooms, and then we get in the day before or the evening before and be allowed to kind of set up and make sure we can navigate through that. So certainly, battle prep, as I call it, the day before or the morning of, if you're coming in and plugging in, making sure the audio obviously works, making sure you've got all your documents laid out on the table. If you've got handouts, making sure that you have the tea and cakes ready to go, or tea and donuts, whatever it might be. It's really important, because that really makes the difference, of the you were organized and the session went really. Listen, you could have missed a couple of things here and there in the scenario. You might have slipped up on one or two things that you said, but you know what? You rounded it off by making sure that the event was flowing smoothly, and everybody was very happy with the end result, because you remembered, to bring in donuts.
Actually, you were showing your English side there when you said tea and cake.
I did. Yeah, I did. Afternoon tea. Yeah.
What speaking of logistics, and you mentioned, these 60, 70 people exercises in multiple locations. Do you manage that differently than some of these smaller ones? And I don't mean, obviously size, you can obviously tell, but do you manage them differently by way of scenario and by way of the planning?
Sure.
Like, are you building on the previous steps?
Yeah.
I guess is
Yeah.
really
No.
what I'm after.
Yeah. You have to be really careful in terms of expectations, right? So we'll lay the expectations out early. I remember doing one, again, multinational bank, and it was their kind of annual big event where all their preparedness folks came together, as well as IT divisions and all kinds of different groups. And I think we had in Boston over maybe 70 on the day, and then we ran into an evening exercise with Asia. Anyway, so it's this kind of big well thought out event. And if you have enough time, then you can go into the level of detail that you would normally go into in terms of your scenario. But typically you don't. And even if you had a lot of time, you still have a lot of folks that want to have their voice heard. And so you have to manage that as well. Okay, so you're breaking down into these teams. When you come back, the 7 teams, for instance, I'm just using that as a number, you got one leader from that team who will come back and brief and talk about what the findings may have been. So that's just one example of how we would do that. But I think it's much more what we've found is when you've got that larger group together, and the reality is, you're not responding like that. I mean, some organizations used to do it like that. I hope there's not many responding with 80 people on phone calls anymore,
Yeah.
having their say on what's going on. And I was talking to someone today about that as well. So yeah, so it's just about again a lot more organization on the design end. Probably going into less detail and really focusing in on what can we really accomplish, and then setting those expectations early, with those participants.
Just out of curiosity, with so many people, is it a good idea to either record everything or have a note taker, or both?
Yeah, each group we recommend have a scribe. I think in that one particular one, in Boston there, we made sure, because again they were grouped into their particular areas of responsibility within the organization. So they had a pretty good process in terms of having a scribe. And again, every team should have a scribe, right? And
Mhm.
whether it's a crisis team, whatever level, a continuity team, you should always have someone that's documenting what's going on throughout the life cycle of the event. So yeah, and then you may have that rolled up as well, right? So you've got all those individual groups, and then you've got a corporate crisis team, if you will, that sits over the top of it. Again, rolling all of that information up in terms of what's happening.
Okay. So now let's move to step 4.
Yeah, exercise delivery and evaluation. Of course, this is game day, as we call it. So yeah, we hit step 4. We call it game day, but we don't, because of course we want to make we're going to explain what it means. But and so delivery, obviously, really important. It's not about you at this point; it's about the team. So when you do your introductions, you want to make it as brief as possible. What we like to do prior to this is send out a pre-read video. It's one of the things that we send out early on in the process, so that gets everyone up to speed early on, what the general expectations are, where to be, what time, review the plan, just remind and revise. So really, when you come into the scenario, it's less about that first 10 minutes that's focused on just telling them what to expect, and it's more time spent on the scenario, because typically you have less time to focus on the scenario. We like to have a leader, Alex, give them talking points if they want them, but typically they don't. So the most senior person in the room, or if there's someone on site that's if there's a senior leader on site that wants to come in and set the stage and say, look, this is really important to the organization. Focus in today on going through the challenges that are presented to you, and this is about improving on our efforts to be more resilient. So again, that one comment from 30 seconds from a leader really helps you as the
Mhm.
delivery person,
Yeah.
set the stage for people to focus in and say, okay, the next 3 hours we're going to focus in because the boss said we have to focus in. So that's the delivery, initial delivery part. And then it's just about process. Then you've got content. Okay, present the content. Break the teams up if you've got a decent sized team. Even with a small team of 15, 20 people, I like to split them up into 2 groups, because often you might have a leader that overtakes the conversation throughout the
Yeah.
whole exercise. So it's good to split them up. You get different ideas from different groups. You get some of course, the same responses as well, which you would naturally get. But then you'll get 1 or 2 thoughts from each group. They'll go, "Oh, I wasn't thinking about that." And again, that's so
Mhm.
breaking them up really helps, and it also gets them out of their bums out of seats as well. So, as I
Yeah.
like to say, so even for 3 or 4 hours, they get them out of the seats. And of course, in a virtual environment, it's a little different. But certainly, if you can come back together and have a group around the table, we had a recent exercise which was really good to see folks back around the table, and they were really thankful for it. I did a couple recently, and that really worked well. And then the evaluation component. Oh, sorry. As you're going through the exercise, again, same process. Split them up, bring them back, and then really you're looking to capture what the issues are. So that's one of the main things about the exercise, right? What were the gaps that the teams found? Because they identify them walking through the process. They didn't come
Mhm.
from me, from designing the scenario. It didn't come from my design team. It didn't come from anyone else other than them identifying what the problem was based on the storyline that we presented to them. And then they're more likely to go away and update their plans if they identify the problems. And so that's really important
Mhm.
that happens. And then at the end of the delivery, at the end of the exercise, you have a hot wash. That's really important. Gather all the main findings in, that the team's identified, and again document all of that and take it away with you. So yeah, step 4, really important, the delivery and evaluation.
How do you challenge everybody that's participating in the exercise, so that they don't just go, yeah, we would just do this and this. Yeah, don't worry about that. So that they don't have that, well, there's a French expression that I can't remember, but uh, where they don't seem apathetic.
Yep.
They actually feel invigorated, and taking out the 30-second speech from the executive, who's now left the room.
Right. Right.
How do you keep them going? We wouldn't do that. Yeah, we do this. Because I'm sure you've encountered people like that too.
Yeah. So the more personal you can make it to their environment, right, and get down into the weeds. This is your database. This is your street where your office building is. Oh, and John Smith, he works, and John Smith is actually a person that you work with, and John Smith is the one who did whatever he did, so you get really down into the details, and you surprise them. That's what we like to do. Surprise them that you've took the time, or you've taken the time to really get down and really understand their world and make it relevant to their world. So we have a saying called every alligator needs feeding. So if they're in the exercise, right, you got to throw them a bone. You got to throw them a piece of meat, right? And so and that's everyone in the room as well. So again, that comes down to creative story. Listen, we live to love for stories, right? So movies, books, whatever it might be, and we engage with those. And it's no different with scenario planning. The more realistic you make it to their environment, the less challenges you will have in terms of the naysayers is what we call them. Occasionally, if we, again, it's unusual now just because we've got to a stage where we're telling such good stories that people are engaged throughout. That occasionally, if you do have one of those, and there are, especially in the leadership role as well, what we like to do is say, you've won the lottery, and you're a multi-millionaire now. Step off to the side, or you've got a sick. So we change leadership roles over as well, just naturally. Okay, you've got sick family. We want to bring a new leader in to get briefed up. So there's different tactics that you can use. Certainly in more advanced tabletop exercises as well, I would advocate using backups, just so again to get those fresh ideas and keep the bums out of those seats, so to speak.
I'll give you an idea. Maybe you've used it. I don't know. I did one of these exercises years ago, and at the very end, I gave everybody an envelope, and they opened it up, and there was a color inside, red, yellow, or green. And it identified, I said, based on the, green, you were okay, yellow, you were around somewhere, but couldn't be reached, and red, you were simply unavailable, couldn't be reached, whatever. Based on the decisions and actions you just did, would you still be able to would the same decisions and actions be done based on the color you just chose?
Yeah. That's a good one. I like that one. Yeah.
And boy, did it make some change.
Yeah, that brings it home to them. Yeah.
Well, it turned out there were two people in that room that had authority to sign payroll checks, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Both of them pulled out a red. And it was complete by accident. I didn't have it planned at all.
Right.
And I said, now you got an action, don't you?
Right. Yeah. I like that.
So let's go to step number 5.
Yeah, step 5 is post-exercise activities. So this is putting a report together. So this is after we've left the venue. We've already collected the notes at the end of the exercise, a post-exercise debrief, as we call it, a hot wash. And then when we leave there, we've got all those notes, and we have to put an AAR together. That's an after-action report. And so what we like to do is put a draft report together. And again, these are all the findings from the exercise. So we have an executive summary, who participated, a general overview of the scenario, and then we like to put observations and recommendations, again based on everything that was found from the participants. We typically send that along, and then we go through a process of sitting down with the decision makers, the team leads, whoever it might be, the coordinators, and we go through each line item. So, okay, observation 1. The activation of the team was found to be slow due to not having a thorough process for that. Do you agree that the recommendation is we need to update our procedure, implement a new tool, practice that, and then everybody agrees on that, and then we go forward like that. So, and then once that's been, the thumbs are up for that, We then finalize that and send that report through. What we like to do as well, Alex, is put together an after-action summary video. So this is for the executives, and it's a short video, 3 to 4 minutes long. It summarizes everything that went on, the good, the bad, and the ugly in the exercise. And again, that's sent along to the executive. So that's another, kind of another one versus the 15-page PDF, which those execs won't read, but they'll like to hear that something's going on. We're planning, we're running these exercises, and I can get, and then it's actually a good general sense of, oh, that's how these exercises are run. So it's actually, for us, it helps as well push kind of like the next volume of exercises for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've done a simple tabletop now. How about bringing the other teams in as well that we need to coordinate with? Let's think about running a functional exercise, which is a wider audience group. So that's typically the post exercise, or the main part of the post exercise activities.
You mentioned a word there, the ugly. So how do you suggest communicating the ugly in this report and with executives?
Yeah.
Because that can't be tough, because it could be a person, could be a process, could be something that's near and dear to an executive's heart that doesn't work.
Yeah.
How do you address those kind of things?
Yeah. So it's never about people, because, the reason we're here is because we have a plan. We have a team, we come together, whoever wrote the plan. If I don't implement that procedure correctly and I'm the lead for that role, then it's not me, it's the procedure itself. And so we identify, really, that's what we focus in on. Of course, if someone's been obnoxious and rude, and then that's a side conversation to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we make it about the process to make sure that people feel comfortable. And again, it's about words, right? So we always get someone who's good with words to do our proofing for us, and make sure we're on point with that. But you have to be, going into the exercise, they have to understand that this is going to be an honest appraisal of where they currently sit from a preparedness standpoint. And they have to say, yes, that's part of, accepting the fact that we're going to go into this exercise, understanding that there will be gaps that will be identified, and we have to accept those.
And maybe that's key, because I know of situations, heard of situations, and been a part of situations where that doesn't really get clearly communicated at the beginning.
Right.
So when an after action report appears, or an executive summary, or a findings report, whatever the organization calls it, and there's a list of things, suddenly people are just taken aback.
Right.
You don't want that to happen.
No, not at all. No.
On that note, we've come to the end of our second segment. We are talking with Rob Burton about exercising for corporations, and we will be right back. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.